What if the house you were kicked out of as a teen ends up with your name on the gate years later? The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the quiet hum of Oasis Hills, even in its humbler coral district, had already begun. Roosters crowed from distant yards, water taps ran in front of neighboring homes, and the sweet aroma of pap and akara drifted faintly from a nearby food stall. Then, the slap came. Sharp, loud, final. Rachel stood on the dusty veranda, still in her worn-out school uniform skirt and an oversized t-shirt. Her cheek burned, and her pride throbbed more than the sting on her face. Margaret's hand remained suspended in the air for a moment before she dropped it and adjusted her wrapper tightly around her waist. "You think you can steal from my purse and go free?" Margaret hissed. Her voice was thick with rage, eyes flaring like someone betrayed by her own blood. "Just because I allowed you to stay in this house after your mother died doesn't mean you can do anyhow." Rachel's lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. She had learned a long time ago that silence was safer than protest in this house. From the corner of her eye, she spotted movement. Their next-door neighbor, Mama Ifioma, was pretending to sweep her already clean compound. Her eyes were watching everything, her broom barely touching the floor. Further down the street, Uncle Paul's gate man peeked through the metal bars, whispering something to a young girl beside him. The drama had an audience. Thomas emerged from inside, his face unreadable. He wore his usual faded brown wrapper and white singlet. He said nothing, not even a glance in Rachel's direction. Instead, he handed Margaret a polythene bag, the kind used for carrying raw meat. It bulged at the sides. "Her things," he muttered. Margaret grabbed it and dropped it beside Rachel's worn-out Ghana Must-Go bag, which had already been dumped like garbage on the veranda. Rachel looked at the polythene bag. That was it. That was all the family she had left, packed away like leftovers. "I didn't take your money," Rachel finally said. Her voice was quiet, not defiant, just tired. Margaret stepped forward again, nostrils flaring. "You this girl. If I hear one more word from that your lying mouth in..." Jordan burst through the front door, barefoot, in his Spider-Man pajamas. "No," he wailed, running to Rachel and clinging to her waist. "Don't go. Please don't leave me, Rachel." Rachel bent quickly and hugged him tight, inhaling the scent of powdered milk and sleep in his hair. Tears prickled her eyes, but she blinked fast. "I have to go," she whispered. "But I'll see you again, okay? Promise." Margaret marched forward and yanked Jordan by his collar, dragging him back like he was a sack of yam. He screamed louder, his small arms flailing. "Let him say goodbye," Rachel shouted, stepping forward, but Thomas stepped in her path. No words, no emotion, just a wall. She stared at him, her father, the man who used to buy her puff-puff on the way from school, the man who once carried her on his shoulders during a school match passed. That man was gone. "I didn't steal anything," Rachel said again, quieter this time. Thomas looked at her for the first time. His eyes were tired. "Hello." Then he turned and walked back inside. Margaret pushed the bags off the veranda with the side of her foot. "Out. I don't want to see you here by the time the sun is fully out." Rachel bent down and gathered her things. A pair of old slippers poked out of the bag. Her biology notebook was slightly torn at the corner. The polythene bag had a bottle of hair oil, some old clothes, and a half-used roll-on. As she picked them up, she felt the sting of humiliation tighten around her chest. Neighbors were no longer pretending. They were watching openly now. A young boy passing on a bicycle slowed down. Two women by a roadside stall whispered and shook their heads. She looked down the street. It was long, lined with rusted zinc roofs, cracked walls, and laundry hanging on nylon ropes. She had walked this street since childhood, but now it felt strange. Hostile. Rachel lifted her bag on her back, balanced the polythene in her arms, and began walking. Her feet were bare. Behind her, the compound gate slammed shut. "Rachel!" Jordan's voice echoed, muffled by the closed gate. She didn't turn. She kept walking. Past the Ojo's blue bungalow. Past Mrs. E. Keene's foo-foo stand. Past the crack near the gutter where she once sprained her ankle. People stared, but no one spoke to her. Not even to offer water or a lift or a kind word. As she neared the junction, a black Lexus was parked by the corner. The windows were tinted, engine running low. She glanced at it quickly. It didn't belong to anyone from Coral District. She paused, just briefly, as if her body sensed something strange. Then she looked away and kept walking. From inside the car, a pair of eyes followed her. Sharp, intent. Rachel reached the edge of Coral District and turned onto the main road. Her stomach growled. She had eaten only Gary and groundnuts the night before. She had no phone, no money, just 200 naira folded into the side of her shoe. She had no idea where she was going. All she knew was she wasn't going back. Ever. As she walked into the morning, the sun rose behind her, casting a long shadow that stretched across the road like a promise not yet fulfilled. And somewhere behind her, inside the black Lexus, someone made a call. She's out. Alone. Just like we planned. Rachel walked for a long time, unsure of her next step, her bag growing heavier with every block. Her arms ached, but she didn't dare stop. She felt if she paused, she might break. She tried not to cry. Not out here. She passed the local chemist store, where Mr. Lawrence often gave her free paracetamol when her migraines got bad. He was arranging crates of drinks outside. He looked up, saw her, hesitated, and then turned back around. Not even a greeting. Her shame now had weight. A shadow people didn't want near them. She found an old, rusted bench at a bus stop near a mechanic's shop. It was half broken, crooked on one side, but it was empty. She sat, placing her bags beside her and folding her arms tightly against her chest. Her stomach groaned again. Voices floated around her. Conductors shouting destinations, women hawking mangoes, the hiss of tired buses pulling into potholes. Life was moving, full of energy, but she felt like a ghost. A little girl approached with a tray of boiled eggs and water sachets. "Auntie, bye now," the girl said with hopeful eyes. Rachel gave a small smile and shook her head. The girl stared at her a little longer, then moved on. She sat for nearly 30 minutes, watching the city wake up properly. Children in neat uniforms walked past with their mothers. Men in suits hailed bikes. She imagined she was one of them, that she was going to school or work, that she had a life beyond today. A man sat on the bench next to her. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, with a plastic bag from a supermarket. He didn't look at her at first, but after a while, he asked, "You okay, young lady?" Rachel hesitated. "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly, studying her with quiet concern. "You don't look okay. You running from something?" "No," she lied. The man sighed, stood, and reached into his pocket. He handed her a 500 naira note. "Buy food. Whatever it is, you'll survive." Rachel blinked, overwhelmed. Thank you so much, sir." He didn't wait for more words. He just walked away. She stared at the money for a while. Then she stood and crossed the road toward the nearest kiosk. A small woman with a wrapper tied at her chest smiled at her. "Wouldn't you go chop, my Pekin?" Rachel pointed. "1 akra, small pap." She paid, and the woman handed her the warm food in a rubber plate. Rachel sat on a stone beside the kiosk and ate slowly, savoring every bite. For the first time that morning, she felt warmth not from the sun, but from kindness. When she finished, she packed her things again and stood up. Still no plan. Still no destination. She walked to the nearby pedestrian bridge, crossed over, and entered another part of Oasis Hills. A newer, fancier side where people wore sunglasses and ordered iced coffee. She wandered through it like a tourist. This place smelled like money, like comfort, like everything she'd never had. But someone was still watching her. The black Lexus moved slowly down the street, keeping a safe distance. And Rachel? She had no idea her life was about to take a turn that even she wouldn't believe. Before we continue, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts so far, and most importantly, subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next. And hey, share this with someone who loves a good twist. Alright, let's get back to the story. The sun rose sluggishly over the rusted rooftops of Grit Lane, casting long shadows that made the potholes look deeper than they were. Rachel sat quietly in the back of Mrs. Grace's buka, the aroma of fried plantain and beef stew wrapping itself around her like a warm but unfamiliar blanket. Her eyes, red from crying, stayed glued to the little corner of the compound where a small boy once clung to her waist. She blinked hard. Mrs. Grace, a woman in her late 50s with a commanding voice and hands that always smelled of spice, gave Rachel a once-over. You go just sit there like water leaf when no get root? Come help me tie this moi-moi, Jer, she barked, not unkindly. Rachel quickly rose, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She wasn't used to this kind of fast-paced, no-nonsense lifestyle. Everything in her old life had moved at a quieter rhythm. Morning devotion, ironing school uniforms, sneaking into the kitchen for leftover puff-puff. Here, it was hot fire, shouting customers, and never enough nylon wraps. Mrs. Grace ran the buka like a military camp. Her voice sliced through noise, ordering suppliers, scolding apprentices, and charming customers all at once. She had 2 helpers, but Rachel quickly realized she would have to prove herself. You sabi tie leaf? Grace asked, eyebrows raised. Rachel hesitated. A little. That's how you children of nowadays lie. Oh yeah, start. If your own burst inside pot, you go drink the water. Rachel smiled nervously and got to work. Her first 3 raps were wobbly. By the 6th one, she had found her rhythm. Within days, she was waking up before dawn, helping grind beans, mix peppers, and boil water in huge iron pots over firewood. The heat was unforgiving. The smoke made her eyes burn, but Rachel kept pushing. By the end of the first week, Grace handed her a tray stacked with steaming moi-moi and a bottle of pure water. Go traffic. Inside heat. Shout. Smile. Sell. Rachel blinked. Ma, you day wait for bank job? Oya nah. And just like that, Rachel became a traffic hawker, standing between honking cars, dodging conductors who insulted her and drivers who tried to grab her hand. Rachel learned to shout prices, make change with sweaty fingers, and smile even when someone insulted her. One sweltering Thursday, as she shouted, "Hot moi-moi, fresh from fire," near a long queue of yellow buses in Ojodu, a soft voice stopped her. "I'll buy 2, but I want one with a story." Rachel turned. A tall, skinny guy in a faded Arsenal jersey and slippers held out 200 naira notes. He had a crooked smile and an old laptop bag slung over his shoulder. "I don't have stories, just moi-moi," she said, unsure. He grinned. "Then make one up. Anything but traffic noise." She raised a brow. "Okay. This one," she said, holding a leaf-wrapped moi-moi, was made by a girl who used to dream of going to the University of Lagos, until her stepmother slapped her into reality. He laughed, a full, surprised laugh. "Wow, I like you. I'm David." Rachel gave him a nod and pocketed the money. Rachel. From that day, David became a regular. He always bought moi-moi and sat under the broken umbrella at the corner of the bus park, typing furiously on a battered HP laptop. Sometimes he would wave her over and share sips of La Casera. One day, curiosity got the best of her. "What are you always typing?" she asked. "A blog," he said. "Street food stories. Not many people read it, but I like it." Rachel leaned closer. "Can I see?" He turned the screen toward her. The page loaded slowly, but there it was. Street fire. Taste the hustle. Photos of roadside suya, fish pepper soup from a one-eyed woman in Oshodi, and a review of Puff Puff sold outside a nightclub. "You wrote all this?" she asked, impressed. "Yep. I just wish I could get it out there more. Maybe learn some coding, fix the website." Rachel stared at the computer, awed. "I've never used a laptop before." David looked at her. "Want to learn?" Rachel hesitated, then nodded. From that week on, their friendship bloomed in the little shade behind Grace's buka. When Grace wasn't watching, Rachel would sneak away for 20 minutes to learn how to type, how to use Google, how to upload photos to the blog. They made a great pair. Rachel wrote descriptions of the meals sold around town, poetic ones, while David added technical polish and took photos. The blog started to look cleaner, neater. She learned about SEO and hashtags. She learned how to create titles that made people click. "Top 5 mama put spots in Grit Lane," she typed one evening. David nodded. "Now you're getting it." They celebrated with boiled corn and coconut from a roadside cellar. But at night, in the quiet of her small mattress beside the gas cylinder in Grace's storeroom, Rachel would curl up and cry. She missed Jordan, missed his laugh, the way he would sneak in her room at night to steal sweets. She remembered his little drawings of monsters and how he said he'd protect her from everything when he grew up. She wished she could protect him instead. One night, David caught her wiping her eyes. "Want to talk about it?" he asked. She shook her head. "It won't bring him back." "Your brother?" She nodded. David didn't push. He just sat next to her in silence, handing her a piece of gala. Then came the unexpected moment that shifted everything. One Thursday evening, as they huddled over the laptop editing a story about Accra sellers who used secret spices, David froze. Rachel looked at him. "What?" He pointed at the screen. Someone commented, "From Canada." Rachel squinted. "Really?" He clicked on the email icon. The subject line read, "From a fan in Toronto." David opened it. The message was short but mind-blowing. "Hi, David. I stumbled upon your blog while looking for authentic Nigerian street food stories. I love your style. If you ever want to collaborate or explore growth options, I'm happy to chat. I'm an angel investor looking for passion projects." Stephanie N. Rachel gasped. "Investor? Like money investor?" David stared at the screen, dumbfounded. This can't be real." Rachel leaned in. "Email her back. Now." David quickly typed a short reply, thanking her and suggesting a call. His fingers trembled. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked. He nodded, but his voice was shaky. "I've been doing this blog for 3 years. Nothing. Then you come in, and everything changes." Rachel flushed. "Maybe it's just timing." He looked at her. "No, it's you. You brought life into this." They stared at each other for a moment too long before Mrs. Grace's booming voice cut through. "Rachel, if I catch you with that laptop again during rush hour, you go sleep inside dustbin." Rachel scrambled up. David shut the laptop, but the spark had been lit. Something big was coming. She could feel it. That night, as she lay awake, she whispered into the dark, "God, please, let this mean something." And in the shadows of Grit Lane, a miracle was quietly crawling toward her. The glass doors of Mojicare's sleek new office swung open, sunlight bouncing off the marble floors like it had been waiting 10 years to greet Rachel properly. She walked with quiet confidence now. Chin lifted, back straight, steps measured in poise, not panic. The city of Oasis Hills buzzed beyond the windows. Luxury cars glided past palm-lined streets. Digital billboards blinked health tech slogans in neon green, and drones floated lazily over rooftop gardens. Oasis Hills was nothing like the Grit Lane of her past, and Rachel, now 27, was nothing like the girl who had sold moi-moi in traffic. Inside, the office pulsed with energy. Clean lines, pale wood finishes, smart glass conference rooms, and a subtle mint scent from the indoor hydroponic wall made everything feel like a breath of the future. Rachel adjusted the hem of her silk blouse, exhaled deeply, and stared at the Mojicare logo beaming behind reception. David strolled out of the strategy room, sleeves rolled, laughter still in his voice from conversation with one of their engineers. His battered laptop had been replaced by a sleek device, but his easy charm remained untouched. He paused when he saw her. "You ready for Glassbridge?" he asked, brushing a lock of hair from his face. Rachel smiled tightly. "As ready as I'll ever be." The invitation had come 2 days ago, an exclusive opportunity to pitch their next big product to Eleanor Carter, the reclusive real estate tycoon behind some of the most expensive properties in the country. Glassbridge Hill was practically a legend in Oasis Hills. Rumors said the gates could read your temperature, and the trees were imported from Switzerland. As the black Mojicare SUV pulled into the steep road leading to the hill, Rachel's nerves returned. Her hand brushed against the old charm bracelet on her wrist, a gift from Jordan the week before everything changed. She never took it off. The Carter mansion came into view slowly, like a secret revealing itself brick by brick. It sat on a slope like a queen on a throne, grandeur without noise. Ivory pillars framed massive arched doors, the kind you'd see in old movies. The grounds were perfectly trimmed, with glossy stone paths winding past sculpted hedges. Inside, the scent of aged books and gardenia wafted through the air. Art pieces lined the halls. Real ones, Rachel guessed, judging by the small gold plaques beneath them. She noticed the staff walked silently, gliding past like trained ballet dancers. This place wasn't just rich, it was choreographed. Mrs. Eleanor Carter entered the parlor like a whisper wrapped in silk. Her silver hair was pinned neatly, and she wore a navy blue blouse with a brooch shaped like a sparrow. She looked like someone who had seen centuries and taken notes. "You must be Rachel and David," she said warmly, her voice a husky blend of smoked whiskey and piano notes. "Welcome to Glassbridge." Rachel extended her hand. "Thank you for having us, ma'am." David followed, adding, "It's an honor. We've heard amazing things." Eleanor nodded with a faint smile. "Let's hear what you built." The presentation took place in a room with glass walls overlooking a valley filled with golden trees. As Rachel clicked through slides about Mojicare's home diagnostic kits, wearable trackers, and AI-driven health alerts, she felt her confidence return. David added stats and momentum, his words sliding effortlessly around hers like old dance partners who knew the routine. Eleanor listened without blinking, fingers steepled beneath her chin. She didn't interrupt. She didn't frown. Her eyes, sharp as polished obsidian, never left Rachel. As the pitch ended, Eleanor leaned back slightly. "You're building something important," she said slowly. "It reminds me of a woman I once knew. She believed in healing too. Not just the body, but the community." Rachel offered a polite nod. "That's exactly what we're trying to do." Eleanor rose and gestured for them to follow her. "Come, let me show you something." They passed down a quieter wing of the mansion, where the walls were lined with framed memories, photos, newspaper clippings, handwritten letters sealed behind glass. Eleanor stopped at one frame, her fingers tracing the glass like it was a window to another time. Rachel's eyes landed on the photo. Her breath hitched. It was a young woman, late 20s, glowing skin, deep-set eyes. Her smile was soft and sure. She wore a floral dress and held a baby. Rachel's voice cracked. That's my mother." Eleanor's head turned, slowly. "Pardon?" Rachel pointed again. "That woman. Her name was Clara. Clara Odu." Eleanor's face froze for a moment, then softened with something that looked like regret. Or surprise. Or something deeper. "She went by Naomi sometimes," Eleanor said gently. Rachel blinked. "What?" The hallway spun slightly. She gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. David stepped in. "Rachel, are you okay?" She nodded too quickly. Yeah, I just..." Eleanor seemed to hesitate. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry. I thought you were her." For a second, the words hung in the air like perfume and smoke. "You call me Naomi," Rachel said slowly. Eleanor's lips parted, then closed again. "Yes, my mistake." The tension shifted. It was quiet but loud. David glanced between them. Is there something we should know?" Eleanor smiled tightly. "I'm an old woman. Sometimes memories and faces blur. Let me have my ghosts." Rachel couldn't speak. The photo, the name, the familiarity, it all buzzed in her chest like a broken alarm. The meeting ended shortly after, with Eleanor promising to get back to them in a few days. But Rachel barely heard it. Her mind stayed glued to that photo. On the ride back to Mojicare, she didn't speak. Her fingers toyed with the charm bracelet until David finally asked, "Rachel, who was Naomi?" Rachel's voice was a whisper. "I don't know, but my mother never told me she knew Eleanor Carter." David nodded. Maybe she had her reasons. Rachel looked out the window, Oasis Hills gleaming below them. "I need to find out the truth," she said quietly. Far behind them, in the Carter mansion, Eleanor stood before the photo and touched it again. "Naomi," she whispered, "your daughter is stronger than you ever knew." Rachel sat in her car outside the mansion on Glassbridge Hill, the engine off, her thoughts louder than the world around her. Eleanor had called her Naomi, her mother's name. That wasn't a mistake. It was a breadcrumb, something buried, something that suddenly felt urgent. With her heart pounding like kettle drums, Rachel stepped back into the mansion, her heels clicking with quiet rage. Eleanor was still in the office, staring at the portrait on the wall, the same one Rachel had noticed during their pitch. A soft painting of a smiling woman in a peach lace dress, arms open like she was ready to hug the world. Naomi, Rachel's biological mother. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said, her voice trembling but strong. Eleanor turned slowly, eyes already misty. Yes, child. I knew you'd return. You call me Naomi. What? Eleanor stood in silence. Then, without sitting, she gestured for Rachel to close the door. Because you are her daughter. Rachel is your name now, but I knew you the second you walked in. Those eyes. That smile. You're Naomi's child. Rachel blinked. How? You knew my mother. Knew her? We were inseparable. Eleanor smiled sadly. We were like sisters. She even lived here in this mansion for a while, when we were young, before she met your father. We built dreams on this hill. Rachel's mouth went dry. Then why didn't you ever look for me? Oh, darling. I did, Eleanor said, sitting gently on a velvet sofa. I looked everywhere. But after Naomi died, your father vanished with you. He changed addresses, numbers, blocked my legal claims. I hired lawyers, detectives, everything. All dead ends. Then, silence. Rachel sank into the armchair opposite. Her throat was tight. He told me nothing, just that my mom was gone. And that was it. Margaret came after. She hated me. Treated me like I was in the way. Eleanor's eyes flared. You were not in the way. You were supposed to inherit part of your mother's estate. This hill, this land, some businesses too. She named you as the heir in her will. Rachel shot upright. What? Eleanor opened a drawer, pulled out an old file with yellowed pages. Naomi's will. Look here. She signed this shortly before her death. You were barely 7. But somehow, months after her burial, new documents surfaced. Legal ones. Stamped and signed. They claimed you had waived your right, and your father, Thomas, had sold off all your assets. Rachel's mouth hung open. He forged my signature, and your mother's, I believe, Eleanor whispered. But I couldn't prove it then. He had power connections, and I was just an old friend without legal standing. They shut every door in my face. I thought, maybe you were better off not knowing. But I never stopped hoping. Rachel stared at the will, her chest tightening. 10 years of struggle flashed through her mind. Living in a buka, selling moi-moi in traffic, being slapped at 17, sleeping on a wooden bench while Grace's fan clicked overhead. She stood. So I suffered all these years because of what? A lie? A signature? Eleanor nodded slowly, guilt swimming in her gaze. I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I truly am. Rachel turned to the window. From this height, the city looked small, but her pain felt massive, like it had been poured into her bones. An investor? She asked suddenly. Eleanor smiled, the first real smile since Rachel had arrived. That was me. David's blog. It felt too honest to ignore. Then I saw your name, and I knew. I wanted to help without spooking you. So I came through an alias. Watched your moves. Watched you grow. I just didn't know how to tell you the truth. Rachel's face twisted. So the funding, the blog boost, everything was you? Yes. Rachel paced the rug, emotions crashing like waves. Betrayal from her father. Lies from her past. And now a woman she barely knew held keys to a life that could have been. You know what hurts the most? Rachel said quietly. He let me believe I was nothing. He stood by while Margaret threw me into the street like a stray. I begged. I cried. And he just watched. Eleanor stood slowly and walked over. She held Rachel's hand gently. And yet look what you've built. Despite all of it, tears trickled down Rachel's cheeks. She wiped them roughly. I want it back. The house. No, Rachel's voice cracked. Everything. My name. My truth. My story. I want it back. And I want the world to know. Eleanor squeezed her hand. Then we do it legally. Loudly. No sneaking. No shame. Rachel looked up, the fire in her eyes reborn. Exactly. He took everything and hoped I'd disappear. Well, now I'll take it back. And I'll make sure he hears every single footstep as I walk back into that home. Eleanor chuckled softly. That's Naomi's spirit in you. For a moment, they stood in silence, side by side, looking out at the city. The mansion around them hummed with old energy, with untold stories. Rachel's phone buzzed. It was a message from David. Investor want another round. Big one. Are we ready? She smiled faintly. She was ready. She had been ready her whole life. Later that evening, Rachel sat in her apartment, the light from her laptop casting a glow across the room. Her mind was everywhere. She kept opening and closing tabs, property records, old court documents, blog posts, news archives. Each click was another piece of the puzzle. Every file she pulled made the betrayal clearer. There it was, her mother's name, Naomi Peters, and right below, a forged addendum declaring a transfer of assets to one Thomas Peters, husband and guardian. The signature looked neat. Too neat. Not her mother's scrawl. Rachel laughed bitterly. He didn't even try to disguise the lie well. She scribbled notes on a notepad. Forgery. Land titles. Estate claims. Naomi's bakery shares. Her phone buzzed again. This time from Grace. My child, I saw your face on LinkedIn. Your company is on CNN. Big woman now. Rachel chuckled, tears forming again. Grace, you saved me. You have no idea. You owe me only one thing, Grace replied. Win, and let them see you win. At Mojicare's office the next day, David watched her curiously. You look like someone ready to burn a village. I am, Rachel replied with a smirk. But with lawyers and paperwork. He raised a brow. You okay? No, but I'm getting there. He nodded. Anything I should know? Rachel hesitated. You'll know soon. Just back me up like always. David placed a hand over his chest. As always. Eleanor connected Rachel with a veteran lawyer, Miss Jacinta Morrison, a sharp-tongued, gray-haired powerhouse who'd sued 3 governors and won. You want justice, or you want headlines? Jacinta asked during their first meeting. Rachel didn't flinch. Both. Good. Jacinta leaned forward. Then let's start with a forensic analysis of those documents. If the signatures are fake, we blow the whole thing open. And that house, your house, goes back on the table. Rachel inhaled sharply. And the land. Jacinta's eyes sparkled. If he sold it under a false claim, we can reverse it. Or demand restitution. Either way, we make noise. Rachel smiled. Let's make it loud. Weeks passed in a whirlwind of documents, court filings, and lawyer meetings. Each day uncovered more of the betrayal. Naomi's shares in a bakery chain were liquidated without her consent. A beachside property was sold at half its worth. Every file screamed of theft, but it also screamed of comeback. Rachel became obsessed. She barely slept, but the exhaustion felt holy, like she was building something sacred, justice. One night, she visited her old street, Grit Lane. It hadn't changed much. Same potholes, same buka, same rusted gate in front of Grace's house. Grace spotted her from the window. Look who came back wearing heels. Rachel laughed, walking into a hug that smelled like palm oil and comfort. They ate in silence for a while, sharing a plate of rice and stew. You know, Grace said, I always believed you'd become something big, but I didn't know it'd be this big. Rachel smiled. I'm not done yet. There's still one place I need to stand. The compound where I got slapped. Grace looked at her, quiet. Then go. But don't go as the girl who left. Go as the woman who came back for what's hers. Rachel nodded, tears in her eyes. I will. And in that moment, under the flickering yellow bulb of Grace's corridor, Rachel felt it. She was no longer the girl dragging a suitcase on the sidewalk. She was a woman writing her return. With fire. And facts. And soon, with thunder. The heat in Oasis Hills that Saturday was sharp and heavy, the kind that sat on the skin like a wet towel. Rachel adjusted her cream blazer and looked at the tall black gate in front of her. The same gate she had walked out of 10 years ago with nothing but a plastic bag and heartbreak. But today, she wasn't the helpless girl from Grit Lane anymore. Today, she was the new owner of 13 Coral Drive. She'd pulled every string, tapped every contact, and even created a shell company named Moon Bay Estates just for this purchase. She didn't want them to suspect anything until it was too late. Rachel had learned to play the long game, and this time, the end game was personal. Behind her, the street buzzed with quiet confusion as 2 police vans idled at the curb. A black SUV with tinted windows carried the legal team. Then came the journalists, 3 from top media houses, their cameras ready, their questions sharp. Rachel checked her wristwatch. 11:08 a.m. Right on time. She gave a small nod to her lawyer, Mr. Fullerin, a neat man in gray trousers and a navy blue shirt, who stepped forward and rang the bell with firm confidence. No one answered at first. Then, after a minute, the gate creaked open. Thomas appeared, dressed in a faded singlet and wrapper. He squinted at the crowd. "What is all this?" he barked, shielding his eyes. Mr. Follerin calmly handed him a brown envelope. "Eviction notice, sir. This property now legally belongs to Moon Bay Estates. Please pack your belongings." Thomas looked baffled. "Are you people mad? Who sold this house? This is my property." Rachel stayed hidden behind the SUV door, watching. She needed to time it perfectly. Then Margaret stormed out, still tying her wrapper, her face swollen with sleep and annoyance. "What's going on here? Why are policemen outside our house?" "This property has changed hands," Mr. Follerin said again, this time more firmly. "You have 30 minutes to evacuate." Margaret scoffed, hands on hips. "To where? This is our house." "What nonsense!" Rachel stepped out then. The moment her heels touched the concrete, a hush fell. Even the breeze seemed to pause. Margaret's face twisted in confusion first, then slowly melted into horror. "You," she gasped. Thomas took a step back, blinking furiously. "Rachel." Rachel nodded once, her voice steady. "Yes. Good morning. I came to collect my keys." Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. "You can't, you. What's going on?" "I bought the house. Through my company," Rachel said. "And now I want you both out." A reporter snapped a picture. Another murmured into a mic. Thomas gripped the gate like he needed it to stay upright. "You bought this place? But how?" Rachel's eyes glistened. "With years of pain, hunger, hard work, and your silence." Inside the house, footsteps pounded. The front door slammed open, and Jordan appeared on the porch, his eyes wide, wearing old jeans and a t-shirt. He was taller now, thinner, but the same soft face. His eyes locked onto hers. He froze, then blinked, then ran. "Rachel? Ratch!" he shouted, voice cracking. Rachel dropped her purse and opened her arms. Jordan crashed into her like a wave. He held her tight, tighter than any words could. His shoulders shook. Her tears soaked his shoulder. "I look for you everywhere," he sobbed. "Facebook, Twitter, even those old websites. Every year on your birthday, I posted something hoping you'd see it." She stroked his head gently. "I saw them. I read all of them." Margaret stood by the gate, watching, her face a strange mix of anger, fear, and something close to regret. Thomas had sat down on the pavement now, head in his hands, silent. Rachel turned to them. "You threw me out like trash. But today, I return as the owner. That's justice." The officers moved toward the house, beginning the eviction process. Furniture was carefully removed, bags packed, photo frames wrapped in cloth. Margaret turned to Rachel. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped. "Your mother didn't die from childbirth, they lied." The words hung in the air like smoke. Rachel stiffened. "What do you mean?" Margaret took a step closer, her eyes darting toward Thomas. "She was poisoned." Rachel's heart jumped. "By who?" But Margaret only shook her head. "Ask your father. Ask him why she was sick after signing the will. Ask him who gave her that last cup of tea." 1,000 thoughts swirled through Rachel's mind. Her fists clenched. She turned to Thomas. "Is it true?" Thomas wouldn't look up. He rubbed his palms over his face like he could erase time. "Don't listen to her," he mumbled. "Answer me," Rachel snapped. But he stayed silent. Rachel exhaled sharply and turned to her lawyer. "Make sure they vacate peacefully. I'll be inside." She picked up her purse, took Jordan's hand, and stepped through the front door of 13 Coral Drive. The smell hit her first. That old mix of polish, dust, and family secrets. Her shoes echoed on the tiled floor. The same cracks still ran through the hallway marble. Jordan followed quietly behind her. "Is this really yours now?" She nodded. "Ours if you want it." He looked around, overwhelmed. "You have no idea how much I prayed for this." Rachel smiled faintly. "Me too." They walked into the kitchen. The same yellow cupboards. The old gas stove. Rachel reached for the fridge door, paused, then closed it again. "This place still gives me chills," she whispered. Jordan leaned against the counter. "I used to sleep in your room after you left. It was the only place that didn't feel like a prison." Rachel touched his arm. "You won't have to live like that anymore." Outside, the press had surrounded Thomas and Margaret, asking hard questions. Inside, Rachel took out her phone and started recording a voice note. For 10 years, I was forgotten. Today, I reclaim my voice. This house is mine, not because I paid for it, but because I survived it. And now I rewrite its story. Jordan watched her, a new kind of pride blooming in his eyes. You're amazing. Rachel smiled at him. You are too. They moved upstairs. Her old room door was still painted lavender, though the color had faded. She pushed it open. The space was dusty, but untouched. Posters from a teenage Rachel still clung to the walls. Jordan laughed softly. You still like that band? Rachel rolled her eyes. Please. I was 17. I thought wearing one glove was fashion. He chuckled, and for a moment, it was as if no time had passed. Rachel walked to the window and looked out. Neighbors gathered across the street, whispering. They're watching, Jordan said. Let them, she replied. They watched me leave in shame. Now, they'll watch me return in strength. Jordan sat on the bed. What happens next? Rachel sat beside him. I don't know yet, but I'm not done. Not until I know everything. There was a knock at the door. It was Mr. Fullerin. They've left, he said. The house is yours. Legally and fully. Rachel nodded. Thank you. And please, file a request to unseal my mother's will. I want to see it for myself. Fullerin's brows rose, but he nodded. Consider it done. After he left, Rachel walked through every corner of the house. Every bathroom, closet, floor tile. She opened drawers, flipped through old books, ran her fingers across furniture. Each item whispered stories she had tried to forget. She ended up back in the living room where Jordan had set up 2 cold drinks on the center table. They drank in silence. Then Jordan turned. Why did she say that? About Mom? Rachel looked at him. Because there's more to our past than we were told. The air was still. Then Jordan whispered, do you think Dad had something to do with it? Rachel didn't answer immediately. I think I need proof. But I won't rest until I know. The front door creaked. A soft wind blew in. The house had been reclaimed, but the ghosts hadn't left yet. As night fell, Rachel walked into the backyard. The stars above shimmered faintly. The same stars she used to cry under. Now, she looked up and whispered, Mom, I'm home. And the wind stirred the trees like a quiet reply. But the final moment of the night came when Margaret's words echoed again in her head. Your mother didn't die from childbirth, they lied. Rachel stared into the darkness. Something had begun, and she would follow it wherever it led. Rachel sat on the faded ottoman in her childhood room, the silence hugging her shoulders like a blanket soaked in memory. Outside, the sun filtered through the rusting iron louvers, dancing over the patched walls of 13 Coral Drive. The renovation team had left, and she had the house all to herself. For the first time since buying it back, Rachel felt a strange pull toward the past. It wasn't anger anymore, it was curiosity. Deep, aching curiosity. With a flashlight in hand and hair tied in a neat bun, Rachel opened door after door, checking every room methodically. Most held old furniture, tattered photographs, dusty figurines. She was ready to stop when she noticed something odd in the hallway closet, a faint crack in the wooden floorboard beneath a stack of old umbrellas. She knelt, pried the wood up, and there it was, a small iron key. Her heart quickened. It didn't take long to find what the key was meant for. In the far left wing of the house, behind a crooked bookshelf, was a door with a tarnished brass padlock. A door she had never seen open. She slid the key in. It turned with a rusty groan. Inside was a room coated in silence and old perfume. The air was heavy, like secrets had been trapped for decades. Pale yellow curtains drooped over dusty windows. A wooden desk stood at the center, with a chair pushed in like someone had just left. Rachel's knees gave slightly as she stepped in. It was her mother's sanctuary. There were shelves full of books, journals, old lace handkerchiefs. She ran her hand along a glass cabinet and opened a drawer. Inside were photo albums, birthday cards, and faded letters tied with a red ribbon. Rachel picked one. To my darling Rachel. Her throat closed. It was her mother's handwriting. She sat on the worn rug and read for hours. Her mother had poured her heart onto the pages. Notes about raising Rachel, poems about love and grief, and worries that Margaret was becoming too possessive. There were several entries where her mother hinted she no longer trusted Thomas. Rachel wiped tears with the sleeve of her blouse. In a bottom drawer, a leather folder lay wedged between two books. Curious, she pulled it out and opened it. A crisp document fell into her lap. It was a land deed, a legal document dated back 28 years, and the land was worth millions. She gasped. Attached to it was a letter written in shaky handwriting. Her mother explained how she'd hidden the deed out of fear that Margaret would steal it. The letter went on to describe how Margaret had once been her housemaid, a quiet girl who became obsessed with copying her style, clothes, friends. She read on. Margaret had apparently tricked Thomas into turning against his wife. Her mother believed that Margaret wanted everything she had. Rachel's hands trembled. That meant the woman who had thrown her out into the street, the woman who slapped her in front of neighbors, had once been a housemaid dreaming of stealing her place. Rachel leaned back, overwhelmed. She closed the leather folder and looked around the room. The scent of aged lavender still lingered. It was as if her mother had been whispering from beyond. Each word she read was a voice calling out from the past, connecting dots Rachel never thought could exist. A creak snapped her out of thought. Jordan stood at the doorway. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded slowly. "I found something. Everything makes sense now." Jordan walked in and sat beside her. Rachel passed him the folder. He read quietly. "Wait, this says there's land in Lecky? This much land?" Rachel murmured. "It was mine all along." Jordan looked at her, stunned. "And she had all this from you?" Rachel nodded. "They made me believe I had nothing." Jordan was quiet for a while. "I always knew something was off. When I was small, I asked Margaret once why we never had pictures of your mom in the sitting room. She slapped me so hard I never asked again." Rachel reached out and held his hand. "I want to know everything," she whispered. They continued exploring the room. A small chest near the corner caught Jordan's eye. They opened it to find more journals and a stack of Polaroids from decades ago, some with Rachel as a baby, others with a man that looked eerily familiar but wasn't Thomas. Rachel paused. She picked up one photo. The man was tall, with sharp cheekbones and a confident smile. On the back was scribbled, "Rachel's first birthday with N." N? She flipped through the journals until she found a page with a half-torn entry. "If anything ever happens to me, tell Rachel the truth about her real father. Thomas was never supposed to." It ended there. Her heart dropped. She leaned back against the chest, her breathing shallow. "Jordan, what if Thomas wasn't my real father?" Jordan stared at her, stunned. "Then who was?" Rachel stood up and walked into the hallway. Her mind raced. It was possible. Everything lined up, the tension in the house, the coldness from Thomas, the whispers. They needed proof. The next morning, Rachel visited a private DNA clinic in Oasis Hills. She carried strands of Thomas's hair from his old hairbrush, kept in a room she used to sleep in. She submitted her sample too. The waiting days were slow. She distracted herself by working on mogul and finalizing documentation for the land transfer. She kept reading her mother's letters at night. Then the call came. She picked it up with shaky hands. "Miss Rachel," the voice on the line said, "your DNA result is ready. We can confirm that Thomas Knight is not your biological father." Rachel's world tilted. She had suspected it, but hearing it out loud was different. "Do you have any match at all?" she asked, voice nearly breaking. There was a pause. "We found a 98.7% match in our private registry. A politician, Senator Nicholas Adebayo." Rachel blinked. "Sorry, who?" "Senator Nicholas Adebayo. We believe he is your biological father." Rachel's mind began to spiral. Senator Adebayo was one of the most powerful and controversial figures in the country. He was charismatic, wealthy, and never out of the news. She ended the call and sat still for minutes. Then hours. Her fingers hovered over her laptop. She typed in his name. The search exploded with articles, charity work, scandals, speeches. But the moment she saw his face, she knew. It was the man from the photo. She clutched the image tightly, the weight of truth settling into her bones. Her life had been stitched together with lies. And now, the threads were finally unraveling. She walked back into the secret room that evening, lit a candle, and sat with her mother's belongings. "Why didn't you tell me, Mama?" she whispered. As if in answer, the candle flickered gently. Jordan entered quietly with a tray of jollof rice and fried plantains. "You didn't eat all day." Rachel smiled faintly. "Thanks." He sat beside her. "So what now?" She exhaled slowly. "Now I find out the truth. Every last piece." They sat in silence, surrounded by dusty journals, fading memories, and the gentle hum of a house that still held so many answers. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew this was only the beginning of something even deeper. The walls had stories to tell, and she was finally ready to listen. The soft, golden glow of the chandeliers lit the vast ballroom of Naomi's Haven, casting gentle shadows along the intricately decorated walls. Rachel stood at the top of the grand staircase, taking in the scene before her. The floor below was a tapestry of elegantly dressed guests, their laughter and conversations blending with the delicate music of a string quartet. The scent of fresh flowers, mingled with perfume and champagne, drifted through the air. She had to stop for a moment, taking it all in. A decade ago, this house had been a symbol of everything she'd lost, a place she'd been forced to leave in shame. Now, it was a testament to everything she'd fought for. It had taken years of struggle, pain, and a fight for her very identity, but Rachel had come out the other side. Tonight, she stood as the woman she had always known she could become, strong, independent, and resolute. Rachel closed her eyes briefly, allowing the weight of the moment to settle around her. This house, this gala, it wasn't just about success. It was about reclaiming something lost. It was about giving back and honoring the memory of a woman she never truly knew but had always wanted to be close to, her mother, Naomi. Naomi's Haven wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of hope for young girls who had been tossed aside by the very people who should have protected them. She could hear the low murmur of voices from the crowd below, the clink of glasses and soft laughter. It was strange to think that this was her reality now. People respected her, admired her, and many were here to support a cause that had become her life's work. "Are you ready, Miss Rachel?" Claire's voice broke through Rachel's thoughts. Rachel turned to see her assistant, Claire, standing below, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress. Claire had been there for Rachel from the very beginning, when her dreams were nothing more than a flicker of hope. She had seen Rachel at her lowest moments and cheered for her as she rose, always offering steady support. Rachel smiled faintly, feeling her heart flutter in her chest. "I think so," she replied, her voice slightly shaky. I didn't expect it to feel like this." Claire gave her an understanding look. "It's a lot to take in. You worked so hard for this. This moment is yours." Rachel nodded, taking a deep breath. "It just feels like a dream." Claire took a step forward, her gaze filled with quiet pride. "It's your reality now. You've earned it." Rachel offered her a brief smile before turning back toward the ballroom. "I'll be down in just a moment. I just need to gather my thoughts." "Take all the time you need," Claire said, her voice reassuring. "We've got everything under control here." As Claire left her to gather herself, Rachel closed her eyes for a moment, letting the calm wash over her. She needed this. She needed to center herself before stepping into the role she was about to play, one that would not only define her future, but honor the memory of the woman who had been taken from her too soon. Naomi's Haven wasn't just a building. It was the living embodiment of a lost dream, resurrected. The old house had seen so many changes. What had once been a place of fear, secrecy, and darkness now exuded warmth, light, and the possibility of new beginnings. It was no longer the cold, oppressive structure that it had been when Margaret had ruled it with an iron fist. No, now it was a beacon of hope, a place for young girls who had nowhere else to turn. Rachel's eyes opened, and she stepped down the staircase, her heels clicking on the polished marble floors. The soft murmur of the crowd quieted as soon as she entered the room. The grand chandelier above her sparkled, sending cascades of light over her emerald green gown. The gown clung to her frame, accentuating the woman she had become, confident, graceful, and poised. She felt every eye on her, but it didn't make her nervous. Instead, it empowered her. She had spent so many years feeling invisible, unworthy, and small. But not tonight. Tonight, she was visible. Tonight, she was powerful. Her gaze swept across the room, and she caught sight of a familiar face. Eleanor, standing near the back of the room, her silver hair glinting under the chandelier. Eleanor's smile was full of warmth, pride, and love. Rachel's chest tightened slightly, a feeling of immense gratitude swelling inside her. Eleanor had been more than just a mentor to Rachel. She had been a mother Rachel had lost when Naomi was taken away. Rachel made her way toward her, moving with purpose, but taking in every detail of the room. She had carefully chosen every decoration, every flower, every arrangement. The space was beautiful, an elegant fusion of old-world charm and modern sophistication. It felt like the house itself was speaking to her, whispering that it was proud of what had been achieved. When she reached Eleanor, the older woman gave her a quick hug, pulling her into an embrace. "You did it," Eleanor said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "You really did it." Rachel pulled back slightly, her eyes glistening. "We did it, Eleanor. I couldn't have done this without you. You've been my guiding light, especially when I felt so lost." Eleanor smiled warmly, the lines around her eyes deepening. "You've always had it in you, Rachel. You just needed the right circumstances to bring it out." Before Rachel could respond, the string quartet paused, signaling that it was time for her to speak. The crowd grew silent, and Rachel turned toward the stage where a podium awaited her. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the front, her heels tapping lightly against the floor. The room was still, all eyes on her. She placed her hands on the podium, and for a moment, she simply looked at the people gathered before her. "Good evening, everyone," Rachel began, her voice steady but filled with the emotion of the moment. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight, not just to celebrate Naomi's haven, but to support a cause that has changed my life, and that will change the lives of many others." There was a soft murmur of agreement from the crowd, and Rachel allowed herself a moment to gather her thoughts. "This house," she continued, "was once a place of loss and pain for me. But today, it stands as a symbol of hope and redemption. Naomi's haven isn't just the house where my mother lived. It's a place where young girls who have nowhere else to turn, can find a safe haven and a chance to rebuild their lives." Rachel paused for a moment, allowing her words to sink in. She could feel the weight of the room's attention, but it didn't overwhelm her. Instead, it made her feel even more resolute. "This evening, I'm proud to launch the Naomi's Haven Fund," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "This fund will provide shelter, resources, and mentorship for young girls who've been thrown out of their homes, just as I was. No girl should have to feel like they don't have a place to call home. I will make sure that no girl ever has to face that kind of despair again." The crowd erupted in applause, the sound echoing throughout the ballroom. Rachel felt a surge of pride and gratitude flood through her. She had done it. She had reclaimed her life, and now she was giving back. As the applause died down, Rachel looked out over the room, her eyes scanning the faces of the people who had supported her. Among them was David, standing at the back. Their eyes met, and Rachel gave him a small, sincere smile. Despite the complicated history between them, Rachel knew that David had played an important role in her journey. He had been there when she needed someone the most, guiding her through the difficult days of her startup and helping her build Mojicare into what it was today. Rachel returned her attention to the crowd and continued, her voice full of conviction. "This is just the beginning. With all of your help, we can make a real difference in the lives of these girls. We can give them the opportunities they deserve." Her speech was met with cheers and applause, and Rachel took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She had finally come full circle. The girl who had been thrown out of her home was now standing here, a successful businesswoman and advocate for the cause closest to her heart. She stepped back from the podium, her heart racing, but her spirit soaring. As the crowd began to mingle once more, Rachel allowed herself to take in the joy of the moment. The journey had been long and filled with pain, but here she was, standing in her mother's memory, surrounded by the people who had helped her rebuild her life. Tonight, she was not just Rachel White. She was a symbol of hope, and she had only just begun. Moral lesson. Sometimes, the very people who cast you aside are the ones who unknowingly prepare you for greatness. Life has a way of flipping the script. Your pain can become your platform. Your rejection can turn into redirection. Keep going. What's truly yours may take time, but when it comes, it will come bigger than you ever imagined. If you found this story engaging, don't just watch, be part of the journey. Hit the like button to show your support, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and most importantly, subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. And if you know someone who would enjoy this, share it with them, your friends, colleagues, and family.